Like I said, Sunday night after, it was a really tough defeat for us. They all are, who are we kidding? But particularly when you're in a game like that against a team that's in a similar place with similar goals and a lot of tangible things right in front of us, to not get the job done was disappointing. But there's disappointments in life and in football, and this week we move forward and we transition and we get singularly focused on this next opportunity, and that's something that we've lived by all year. We do what it is that we do. We seek victory on a week-in and week-out basis. In regards to outcome, man, we transition quickly, and we fix our eyes on the next opportunity. And we got one this week, and an important one for us. And so that's what we do. In reference to the game, really I thought the game unfolded the way I would have anticipated looking back at it, just with a different outcome. Two rough and tumble defenses, and the group that made the most significant plays was going to position its team to win. And just to be quite honest with you, Buffalo made more significant plays on the defensive side of the ball than we did. I thought a couple significant plays stood out. At the end of the first half, we got a turnover and put our offense on the short field, and they got a subsequent turnover, and we came away with no points, and I thought that was significant when we fumbled the ball there in the red area. And I thought another significant turn of events was later in the second half. We crossed the 50-yard line. I think the ball was on the 42 or 43-yard line. We had 1st and 10, and we threw an interception that they returned down into scoring territory on our end of the field. Our defense took the field at that point in time and held them to a field goal. It was a 10-10 game, but they made more splash plays than we did. On the subsequent scoring drive where they were able to score a touchdown, they had the ball around the 15-yard line or so. Tyson Alualu punched the ball out. We had a ball on the ground. We weren't able to recover. And oftentimes games comes down to things like that, particularly teams that are very similar to the way that we were. Something to be gleaned from that. Obviously, the protection and the safeguarding of the football is first and foremost. We didn't do a good enough job of it collectively. Duck didn't do a good enough job of it as a quarterback. But we'll move forward and hopefully learn some significant lessons from that experience. Duck will start at quarterback this week. I look forward to giving him an opportunity to rebound. I think it's reasonable to expect growth from young players as they get exposure. Sometimes that exposure can be negative exposure, like his experience in the last game, but exposure nonetheless is a tool for growth, particularly at the quarterback position. I think it's reasonable to expect him to learn from those negative experiences from last Sunday night and apply it to this next opportunity and really hopefully not make those same mistakes twice. We've been in a similar circumstance this year. Mason had a tough game on the road against Cleveland, and we gave him an opportunity to respond and rebound to that performance. The subsequent week, I think it was Cincinnati. So we'll proceed with Duck. We'll give him an opportunity to respond. There needs to be growth and development from that. It's reasonable expected. I'm looking forward to a good week's practice, not only from him, but from us collectively. We got some holes to plug. We got some things to do. We got to run the ball better. We got to divide the labor up among the running backs a little bit more decisively. We had some question marks last week about James's availability, about Jalen's availability, and I think that hurt us from a prep standpoint. And subsequently, I thought we had some issues from a blitz pickup standpoint. I thought Buffalo was able to apply more pressure on us in passing circumstances than we would like. I think with just a more stable division of labor and a division of labor at the running back position that we can anticipate will allow us to be more stout in that area. There's no question that we're going to need to be. Facing the Greg Williams defense is going to be challenging, but particularly so when you have a young quarterback. If you look at what the Jets have done, particularly of late, the run that they've been on and winning games, I think their ability to get after young quarterbacks has been a catalyst for that. The Washington game, the Giant game, has kind of been a springboard for them. They've gotten after some young quarterbacks in ways that they get after people. Jamal Adams, can't say enough about his tape, man, watching his tape over the last 48 hours. Impact player in the running game, in the passing game, in coverage, in blitzes. I think he's got 6.5 sacks, man. I can't remember the last time I've even seen a defensive back with a sack total like that. He's very ball aware. Not only is he getting sacks, but he's stripping the ball out and raking the ball out. He's got 2 defensive touchdowns. But they got a lot of quality players on their defense. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Steve McClendon, former Steeler, man, is a stout guy inside and up front for them. They're really stout against the run. We're going to be challenged. We're going to be challenged not only because they're stout, but environmentally, playing in their environment and the things that go with trying to establish the run on the road will be challenging for us. But Steve's the guy in the middle. They got a bunch of guys around him that play a lot of people. They got Williams, young first rounder, is providing a nice spark for him as well. On the offensive side of the ball, you know, we got to be ready to deal with the talents of Le'Veon Bell. And he's got a complete game. He can run inside. He can run outside. He's a big-time inclusion in their passing game, whether it's out of the backfield or whether they remove him from the backfield and he's route running in empty sets and so forth. We got to minimize his impact on the game when the ball is going through him, and he's being productive. They're a tough nut to crack in terms of getting behind schedule and creating the type of negativity that we need to create. I know that Greg Williams and company is going to try to do the same on the other side of the ball. So, you know, we're going to be in a similar state that we were in a week ago, probably with 2 really good defenses working their tails off to create negativity and provide a leg up for their team. We don't have the comforts of Heinz Field, so we got respect for that. We're excited about the preparation process and then ultimately getting in and playing. On the injury note, we had no significant injuries from the game, and that's encouraging. 2 guys that have missed some time are still questionable, that being Vance McDonald. He's still in the protocol. I don't have an update there, but I hadn't checked today. Usually that includes some element of participation from a practice standpoint as we push through the week. And Juju is still dealing with his knee injury. He was able to participate some last week. I think he was a full participant on Wednesday, but had to scale it back after the result of that work. We'll go through the similar procedure this week. We'll put him in an environment, we'll work him, we'll see the quality of that work, we'll wait and feel the ramifications of that work, and then make judgments accordingly based on performance and or health. Other than that, we recognize what time of the year it is. We recognize the urgency of it. Man, I love this time of year. The clarity of it, the weight of it is football. And so we're excited about getting into the stadium this weekend, but that excitement means very little without good quality prep. We need a good week this week, particularly with some of the areas that we fell short in the football game last week. Questions?
Mike, did you go into the game against Buffalo or just kind of how it unfolded, thinking that the pass-run ratio would be so as big a difference as it was?
You know, you're going to pass more when you lose. And so that's just the reality of it. We didn't anticipate it being that way, but we didn't anticipate not being in control of the game through the latter part of the third and fourth quarter. So it was what it was. That's not how we like to function, particularly under the current circumstances in terms of our youth and inexperience at quarterback and receiver, but that's how the game unfolded.
When you talk about the division labor among the backs, I mean, Benny Snell, I think, played only 2 snaps, and he's been your most productive running back. Is that kind of what you're referring to?
No, I'm just talking about having a defined division of labor so that the things that they're doing in stadium is reflected in practice prep. And when you got questionable availability, the work that you do during the week does not necessarily reflect the distribution of labor in game. And James's availability was questionable last week. Jalen's availability was questionable last week. So it affected the way we divided the work up during the work week. And it's important that we give the guys the work during the week that are going to get it in the game.
To that point, the Jets' ability to stop the run, being second in the league, stopping the runs, incumbent on you guys as a coaching staff to stick with the run even if it's not yielding huge results early and balance that out so as to insulate the quarterback and the young receivers more?
It's really incumbent upon us to be in control of the game, and then it's afforded an opportunity where we get to choose to run or to not to. When you're not in control of the game and you get somewhat one-dimensional, I think that's the catalyst for negativity.
Before Duck's start earlier this month, you said you weren't spending any extra time with him because you didn't want him to feel like anything was different. After last week's performance, do you do anything different with him this week or spend any more time talking with him?
No.
Mike, you were in a very similar situation last year going into the final 2 weeks of the season. how much do you have to keep the team focused, or how much does that help the team, knowing the circumstances of what happened last year?
We don't care about last year. It's a non-factor as it pertains to this group. We've had a great deal of urgency because our season started the way that it started. September was what it was, so we understand the position we're in, and really we've been in that type of position for some time. And so it's nothing new for us. There's no need to call a secret meeting. There's no need to do anything outside of what we normally do in terms of getting singularly focused on this game.
Like the Jets' ability to disrupt the pocket and disrupt the passer, is that part of the reason why you decided to go with Devlin again, since he does have perhaps some more scrambling ability?
No, the reason I decided to go with Devlin again is for the reasons that I mentioned. I think it's reasonable to expect a young man to improve with exposure. He doesn't have a lot of exposure. I acknowledge that last Sunday was negative exposure. But all of these guys are here and playing at this level because of their ability to respond and overcome adversity at every level of football that they've ever played. They're the guy that when they were on their high school basketball teams that had the ball in the waning moments of the game, et cetera, et cetera. So, I'm just calling on that. And it's not the first time that I've called on that. I routinely call on that. Mason didn't take care of the ball very well at Cleveland the first time, and I gave him an opportunity the subsequent week based on those reasons. And I think it's very reasonable in our business, working with the type of competitors that we work with, that you give them an opportunity to respond to adversity and answer the bell and deliver for their football team.
Exposure and adversity came against a very good defense in Buffalo. Is that part of the analysis as well, that he faced a very elite defense last year?
No, it's exactly what I told you.
Mike, when you started Mason after the Cleveland game in Cincinnati, you pulled him at halftime. Will you have a similar leash on Duck based on his performance in the first half this week?
I don't anticipate or plan for failure. So, I anticipate him doing great. I anticipate him responding to the challenge. I anticipate him doing a great job of moving our offense and taking care of the ball. I hadn't pondered the possibilities of that, and I won't. I'll cross that bridge if and when I come to it.
Coach, how do you feel about James Conner's return after injury? And two, is he back now at 100% health?
He's completely healthy. We wouldn't have played him unless he was, and I like his contributions. Although the sample size wasn't what we or he would like, I thought he was competitive. I thought he won one-on-one confrontations with would-be tacklers and so forth. I thought he played with good body lean. I thought he protected the ball. He did the things that we expect him to do, and hopefully that's a building block as we continue to get him in stadiums. I know his continual presence for us is significant.
Mike, how has your relationship with Le'Veon changed or diminished since he went through everything with Cleveland here?
I have none. I don't communicate with him. He's a New York Jet.
How much does your experience coaching him and having him on your team prepare you for what he can do? I mean, you kind of know what he brings to the game. Maybe
I don't have to tackle him, so I don't have a lot to worry about. Tackling him is the issue, and his teammates have seen him in training camp-like settings. We're the type of team that we tackle in preseason and training camp-like settings. So it won't be the first time that those guys had an opportunity to combat him in those ways. We got a lot of respect for Le'Veon. We know the type of competitor he is. We know he's going to answer the bell and be El Bell in this game. But it's our job to minimize that, particularly as it pertains to us securing victory.
How much has his effectiveness and usage risen and fallen based on the presence of Darnold in there too?
I'll let them talk about that. That's not my bag. Those are things for them to ponder, their division of labor, the quality of it, and things of that nature.
Anyone else?
Actually, one more.
Sure.
You talked about some of the younger players like Duck. Could you talk a little bit about Justin Lane and how he's developing as a young defensive back?
He's working hard every day. He's getting better. You don't necessarily see it because it hadn't been a lot of opportunities in game. Obviously, with the way that Joe and Steve has played, hadn't created a bunch of opportunities for young developing guys like him. But he's been a willing and able participant. He's gotten better in the practice setting. He's been a positive contributor to us on special teams. He's made a few plays, and so his arrow is pointed up. But he's a guy that's behind the scenes working and waiting for an opportunity to show what he's capable of, like a lot of young men.
Mike, what have you seen from Darnold, especially since he's come back from his illness?
He's got all the talent that makes him a top draft pick, man. He's got very good mobility and arm strength and touch. He doesn't panic under pressure. He's been a big challenge in terms of watching the tape, in terms of the things that they do with him. They run him in the red zone. He's got a couple rushing touchdowns. There's a lot of top-notch young quarterbacks in the league. I think that's just one of the things that stands out to me when watching them this week, just thinking back to recent weeks and some of the young quarterbacks that we've seen. There's a lot of young, talented signal callers in football today.
How hard is that for you to gauge as a coach to not, you know what's in their toolbox, but you don't necessarily know what you're going to get week to week?
You know, that's just part of it. That's things that we have to weigh. That's things that his coach has to weigh. That's just a part of the game when you're dealing with people that don't have long resumes.
Like when a team's as banged up as the Jets have been, is it sometimes harder to prepare for them? And do you concentrate more on the scheme? I mean, the corners have been in and out, the tight ends have been in and out.
You know, they got 14 games. You know, their personality is evident on tape regardless of people available to them, just like our personality is available on tape regardless of people to us. When you got a body of work to evaluate and look at it from that perspective, we at this point in the season, there's enough to look at that answers some of those potential questions that you mentioned or suggest.
Mike, what did Darbo show you to get the nod to the 53?
You know, he's working hard out here, but not much more than that. Even the nature in which we work, getting in full pads and things of that nature. But he's been a good, attentive young man, so we'll see if he's capable of putting his hand in the pile and helping us in some way.
Tevin had a couple drops on Sunday. Did that contribute to him?
No, it was more about the potential upside in Darbo.
Mike, Pouncey had a couple low snaps this year. Is there any reason you've figured out why that's happened?
You know, Pouncey has always had a couple of low snaps. You guys never ask about him because Ben would just one-hand him and go about his business, you know, but Ben isn't playing quarterback, so it's kind of become more of a story. We got to minimize some of that negativity, and he's a part of that, but also the guys on the other end of it to minimize it is a part of it as well. And I kid you not, he's always been capable of a low snap or two, but Ben's hands are so good and so fluid that you don't even really think about it.
Coach, you said that you love this time of year. Could you talk about just a sense of urgency when it comes to December football, knowing that you probably have to win these last 2 games to make the postseason?
You know, that's what you work all year for, that clarity, that ticket to the tournament, you know, the finality of it all, the scarcity that's in our game. You know, I just appreciate that. You don't get 80-plus opportunities to state your case. You don't get 160, et cetera. You get 16 opportunities, man, 1 a week over the course of the second half of a calendar year to state your case, and we're in December, so that says it all.
Like, I know Candidate does the same thing with his head mostly every play. Does he have to now be cognizant of that now since it was called?
I don't know what generated the call, to be honest with you, and I hadn't had an opportunity to ask, so I don't know if a change in behavior is required.
Anyone else? All right.
Thanks, guys.